All right, good morning, guys. Welcome back. My name is Mr. Jaylynn. I am the program manager here at the Boys and Girls Club of Martin County. And today I have the honor of interviewing my family, actually, Mr. Jerrick Grant, who is the campaign manager at Broward County Sheriff. So welcome, Jerrick. How are you doing this morning?
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to do this phone call and work with our teams on workforce development. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Anytime.
we're just gonna dive right into this. Can you tell me a little bit? I mean, me personally, I know a little bit about your childhood, but can we go ahead and dive into your childhood? Like, what were your hobbies as a child? What did you enjoy doing?
Off the back, and I'm actually glad that you brought it. You asked me about childhood because many times when we talk about workforce development, we just kind of stem from actual college and or maybe high school and then go directly into the workforce. But childhood, my childhood experiences played a pivotal part in where I am today. I grew up in a small town, which I never realized was this small until I went off to school, called Hope Sound, Florida, in Martin County. As a kid, I wasn't a bad kid. I did find myself in children mess, for lack of better terms. But in that particular community that I grew up in, there wasn't a huge depiction of what success looked like. To many of the adolescents in the city, success to us was maybe drug dealing or whatever we saw the individuals on the corner.
Absolutely.
The guys on the corner with money. When we walk up to them, we ask them for $1 to go to the candy store, and they give us $5. But that was success to us, to many of us in a sense. And there's this idea of a nihilistic threat to society and specifically Black America, which is hope. And the reason that we see so many communities, specifically like Black and urban communities, with children that lack resources and don't have the same resources as children in more suburban communities, as it relates to the education system, extracurricular activities, things like what the Boys and Girls Club do, things of that nature. And we see that, and it all stems from this idea of suppressing hope in the community. And when living in Hope Sound, it's easy for individuals to may look at their situation and don't see hope because they don't know what success is outside of like I said, what they see when they look out their window, the living room windows. But I say all that to say that that community, it taught me a lot. It taught me how to fight, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. It gave me this thrill to want to give back to the community. So I knew that I found out that much from there. But towards the end of my middle school stage, my mother transitioned my family to Port St. Lucie, which was a little bit more suburban than the town that I had come from. And as me being a 14-year-old kid, I was a little bit rebellious about it because I was so used to, living in the hood and wanting to be in the hood, so on and so forth. But there was all great intentions behind it. And it was, I always say that if she didn't make that move, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have met the people that I met that play a instrumental piece in my life on choosing to go to college, choosing to go into the armed forces, and things of that nature. So everything happens for a reason. Sometimes we don't necessarily see the vision in the beginning, but all of those experiences that I had, growing up from Hope Sound and into Port St. Lucie, because believe it or not, once I got to Port St. Lucie, I moved to an area where my mom looked at it as being, safer, and they provided a better education system and so on and so forth. But ironically, I found myself in more trouble in that community in high school than I did in the community that I grew up in, but it was all, I believe it was experiences that I needed to go through. And I don't doubt that for anything in the world. But yeah, so in high school, in Port St. Lucie, I always pay homage to one specific individual. Her name is Dr. Marilyn Pryor. She served as a mentor to me and several of my friends who were on a bad road towards my senior year of high school. And it was her that gave me the idea of going to college. She didn't necessarily give me the idea in the sense of, think about it. It was sort of like we were being voluntold.
Right.
that we're going out to school and that we're doing something. She didn't give us an option. And that was instrumental. She was the first lady to take a group of my friends on our first college trip to see things that we hadn't seen before, and to kind of just really realize and find that hope that, maybe we really can get out, and maybe this is something for us and that we can do. And prior to that, there wasn't, college has become more of a thing now, thankfully, and I pray that we continue to grow, and people that look like you and I continue to thrive and to going to college or looking at other trades and things of that nature to lead them to a path of success.
Absolutely.
But prior to that, it wasn't a huge thing. And getting the opportunity to go and visit these schools and specifically these HBCUs, which I'm a proud product of Florida A&M University. And it gave us, like I said, a sense of hope, a sense of belief, and just encouraged more than anything, So So those relationships early on got me to get to that piece of my life where it was, this is the investment.
Absolutely.
This from this particular point, now you have your entire life in your hand. What are you going to do with it?
Absolutely.
So that was that early on.
So my next question is, at the Boys and Girls Club, a lot of our teams, we're actually we have a team room in the Hope Sound Club. We have a team room in Port Salerno, Indiantown, Palm City. So my question would be, how important do you think it is to have, a mentor in your life? Do you feel like it may be necessary, for some kids, or do you feel like some kids could do without? How much of how do you feel that a teen specialist like myself, can provide resources in communities like Hope Sound, Port Salerno, Indiantown, Palm City? Do you believe that it is necessary?
Mentorship is key. Not only at that level, but it's the most important level,
right?
To really get into the habit of having a mentor. To this day, I have a mentor. Anyone that asks me about how do you obtain a level of success, how do you get anywhere, make certain moves that are for the benefit of your life and your career, your family, mentorship is going to be key. It's going to be one of those things, one of those pillars that's going to always be a thumb. Like I said, I have a mentor. I have several mentors to this day. And the beauty about mentors is mentors are specifically that critical voice in your ear that tells you not only, what you're, what you could be doing better or what you're doing wrong, but it's to constantly encourage you and to applaud you on your successes, because everyone doesn't get that validation that they want just by being applauding and saying, yes, you are enough. You are enough with what you have. You just have to, continue to plan and to execute and to give you all these different, critical pieces of advice that are instrumental in you becoming. So yeah, mentorship is key. You wouldn't be able to do without it.
So my question is, towards the end of your high school career, towards the end of your high school career, did you know exactly what you wanted to get into as far as, you know, your future and your career? Or did you just knew you like, okay, I'm going to college, I know that, but do I know exactly what I want to get into?
Not at all. If you would have asked me, what, 11, 12 years ago, what I was going to do, I had not the slightest idea. Going through high school, I had this idea that I wanted to be an architect, just because, you know, then, you know, around that time I used to enjoy drawing, but didn't really understand the intricacies of it. I'm just like, okay, I'll be drawing, and I'll be drawing, you know, houses, and you know, it was just like a ignorant mindset, you know. But as I was going through, maybe my junior year of high school was the first time I had the thought and the consideration for joining the armed services. And, you know, that was shortly lived, but it was something that I knew in the back of my head that I wanted to pursue. I just didn't know when. I didn't know, you know, how. You know, I was still battling with, you know, my parents' view of it, because they weren't fans initially of me joining the service. But it wasn't until, like I said, my senior year, once I really, I had the opportunity to learn so much from Dr. Pryor, who I just mentioned earlier, who gave me the idea about college. And around that time, I was still uncertain about what I wanted to do. But I had an interest for law, for legal law. But I didn't know for a fact if I wanted to be an attorney. One of my mentors at the time was an attorney, who I later got my first internship with. And it was amazing. But, you know, when I went off to school, I said, okay, well, you know, we don't necessarily have to know our major. At the time, we didn't necessarily have to know our major until, I believe, our sophomore year of, you know, leaving our sophomore year of school. And, you know, I was just told, you know, just by my mentor, you know, just take electives, you know, take as many electives as you can, and just see what interests you. And I was doing that. I was taking, you know, legal courses as electives. And I was like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to pursue. So I went to school my freshman year, and I made up my mind after my first semester that I was going for political science and pre-law. And that was my direction. I didn't steer far from it, but I learned through experiences and, you know, just matriculating through school that law wasn't for me. I mentioned that I had my first internship with an attorney down in Martin County, which I did for shortly, I say for about 6 months, possibly. I did it. And there were things that I saw that I liked. There was things that I saw and I was like, I don't care too much for this.
Right.
But at the time, and this was, and should have mentioned, this internship that took place right after I came back from joining the Navy, which was another piece of my life that I kind of, you know, threw in there. But once I finished with that internship, at the time when I was actually doing it, I wasn't taking courses because like I said, I had just came off of active orders in the U.S. Navy. But I decided at that point when I was doing my internship that I was going back to Tallahassee to Florida A&M to finish up my degree. And when I did that, when I went back, I was proactive and I found a job before I left. And that job just so happened to be the Leon County courthouse. So at this particular point, working at the courthouse, you know, I did this for 2 years. I saw the other end of law, and I was just like, you know what, I really don't think this is for me. And it wasn't until my last 2 semesters of school, I was still in the same degree major, political science. One of my courses, one of our assignments was to go to one of these forums that the Black Caucus was having from the Florida legislature. Tallahassee, of course, is the capital of Florida, so I had the opportunity of being right there, in the heart of it. And at this forum for this assignment, it was the first time that I ever stood and saw Black elected officials, just greatness, to the degree that I saw. It was foreign to me. I hadn't seen that, because again, the community that I come from, that's not my idea of politicians. You know, that's not what we saw when we saw politicians. That's not what we heard when we heard politicians. So to see all these Black electeds that was there and that were talking about all these different issues that I 100% could relate to, and I'm like, yo, this is dope. I left there just like, this is it. I knew at that particular day that that's what I was going to do. And I didn't have to veer much, because the only thing that I went back and changed was my minor from pre-law to English. So I was political science and English, and I later on got my degree there. So I didn't know, but I found my way, and I've been sticking to it, and it's worked for me.
Right, and I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions of, you know, when you are going to school, you have to know exactly what you want to do. So I definitely think that is a misconception, because a lot of teenagers are unsure. They don't know until they get into college. So I definitely think that was a great point. I want to backtrack and ask, how did the Navy mold you to be the professional that you are? And how did it develop the moral character and the values within you by joining the Navy?
So the Navy, if it doesn't teach you anything, it teaches you humbleness, and it teaches you how to be a leader. And those are the two things that I took out of it. Going through, basic training, it was the most humbling and, humbling time of my life. I never experienced had an experience where, it's not so easy to take so much and not be able to have a rebuttal,
Right.
And it was that piece. It was that piece of it that really taught me to humble myself. The Navy has a very, very interesting way to teach you about the importance of having team members with you. It teaches you that you can't do anything on your own, no matter how much you may feel or believe that you can. Regardless, it's always easier, and it's more aligned for a path of success when you're working together. And it could be a task. We didn't understand it at the time, but it could be a task like, pick up this rope and take it, 1 meter. And once you take it for this, walk it for 1 mile, and once you get it to that 1 mile, we want you to wrap it in a circle and then throw it across the bridge. But we need 4 of you to do it. And in your mind, you're like, well, one or 2 people can do this. It doesn't take 4. But they want you to someone to pick up the rope, the other person to help them carry the rope, and then for you to take it to this person, for you to give it to this person to relieve you from. So it just showed you that, in order to do something successfully, you don't have to tire yourself out. Just work together. You have to be a team, because if you don't do it, by the time you get from point A to point B, you're not going to have the strength that you need to roll it together and then to throw it. So now the efficiency has diminished. You know what I mean? So it just teaches you that. It teaches you that in a very twisted way. So the importance of working together, of leading, and to humble yourself, because I believe, to maintain a level of humbleness is also key, and to keep you grounded. I have to keep myself grounded.
Absolutely. And I think, a lot of kids, you being from Hopestown, we do have a lot of members here at our Hopestown club that look like you, that are raised around the same surroundings as you. I think it's great to hear your perspective on morality and values, and how important that may be. As far as getting into, you actually coming of age, getting your first job, what did that feel like when you were finally in the space where you knew that that's where you wanted to be? What was that feeling like for you? Because growing up it wasn't around, you weren't around that. You didn't know how that looked. So what was it like for you once you were finally in a space and in a job where you were like, you know what, I think this is actually what I want to do?
The feeling fulfilling. It made me feel encouraged, and it gave me a drive. It gave me this drive. But before we talk about that feeling, I think it's important to talk about the feelings when you're unaware,
Right.
or when it doesn't look like things are going to go in the direction that you want it to go into. But persistence, the level of persistence that you have to maintain to get to that point, to feel that fulfilling
Absolutely.
experience and that encouraging experience. And I'll tell people, when I and don't get me wrong, when I graduated from college, I was extremely, extremely fortunate to be in the working field. I'll say, well, I did. So when I graduated, the month after my graduation, I began an internship with the Florida House of Representatives. And actually, it wasn't even an internship. It was actually, they hired me on as what we considered OPS, which is just like additional staffers for the reps and the members. So this was right after college. So though I took the opportunity because I knew that was the climate, that was the environment that I wanted to be in. And regardless of me not being confident about knowing what the heck I'm doing once I get there, I just know that I need to be around these people because that's important. You have to surround yourself with people that you want to work for, work with, or to be like, essentially. And so I left my job. I was working at the courthouse, as I told you all. I left my job at the courthouse, which was at that time had just become full time because I got and graduated. They offered me a full time position, and I left that job to go and work OPS for the Florida House of Representatives, where I was getting paid more hourly, but I was only getting paid for, I think, like 20 hours a week at the time. So I was still losing out dollars, which was difficult for me at the time because I was just graduating college. I was a broke college kid. But I knew I had to make that sacrifice. And I had an internship. That internship lasted for 60 days. It was during the legislative session. And while I was there, it was my duty to work my behind off, to come early, to leave late, to work for more hours than I was being paid for. It took that for me because I knew that I was there to prove a point. I knew that I was there to pick up a job. I needed to be noticed.
Right.
And I did what I had to do to be noticed, to be noticed in the best way possible. And it worked out for me. Shortly after the internship ended, the day before the internship ended, I was offered a job by one of the reps that didn't come into fruition for various reasons. So I was out of work because my internship hadn't ended. And I was out of work for, I believe, 3 months. Those 3 months that I was out of work were the most difficult, most frustrating, in uncertain times of my life. I had amazing friends that maintained a level of of clarity for me.
Absolutely.
Because if they didn't, I don't know what would have happened. I literally was going through it. I just felt like, you know, things were just not going to happen how I wanted it to happen. Mind you, it had only been 3 months, but I just knew that what was for me was going to be for me, so much that when things weren't working how I thought they were going to be for me, it was that first time that I doubted myself. I said, well, you know what, well, maybe this isn't it, you know, because this was supposed to happen. I went there and I worked my behind off. You know, I did all these extra things, and it didn't work out for me. And the courthouse was calling me, Jerrick, you know, listen, come back whenever, you know, come back whenever you want. You know, you always have a job here, and this, that, and the third. But a piece of me just could not backtrack. And there was, and let me know if I'm blabbering on too much.
No,
there was an experience that I had during that internship. I was on my way from my office, and I was rushing to a committee meeting in the Capitol. And sometimes getting to committee meetings in the Capitol, if anyone who's ever visited the Capitol know that it's a task, because the tower elevators are always packed. So plan accordingly. And I was on the elevator one day, and I was shooting to a committee meeting, and there was another representative that was in the elevator with me. So he said, "What's your name again, son?" So I said, "My name is Jerrick." So he was just like, Jerrick, he was just like, "I see you working around here, you know, a lot." He was like, "You're a hard worker. I see it. You know, can keep doing what you're doing." So he just like, "What are your plans after school?" So I said, "Well, actually, I'm here working OPS for Representative Larry Lee. I graduated last semester." So I said, "I'm here. I just stepped out on faith." I said, "I'm just here, you know, just trying to work my butt off, and, you know, and I'll see what happens. You know, try to find a job from this particular point." So he said, and I quote, "I hear that." You know, he proceeded to say, "Well, listen, if I hear anything," he was just like, "I'm going to keep you in mind." So I said, "I appreciate that." Fast forward, that same guy was the first representative to hire me. Towards the end of those 3 months where I was going through it because I didn't have a job, it was one night where I had broke down, and I said, "You know what? I'm swallowing my pride," because I was applying for tons and tons of jobs, but I was applying for jobs that were in the field of politics. And I said, "You know what, God, you know, like, you know," I said, "I'll be still, I'll listen." And that night, I started an application to DBPR, the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. I said, "You know what, they have some openings. It's not what I want to do, but I'm just going to start an application."
Right.
And as I was filling out the application, it's about 10 o'clock at night. My phone rings. So I didn't know the number and whatnot. But I picked up, and it was Representative Chevron Jones, the same representative that was in the elevator today. And he said, "Jerrick, I'm so sorry to call you so late." You know, and he goes to tell me that his aide had gotten another opportunity, and there has just become an opening up in his office for his chief of staff. And he said, "Listen, I'm sitting out here and I'm having a conversation, and your name came up." And he was just like, and once it came up, I knew that you would be the perfect person. He said, "I haven't called administration yet. It's not posted." He said, "I wanted to offer you the job first. And if you decline, then I would have them go and post it." He said, "You don't have to answer right now, you know, but just let me know as soon as you can." And, you know, as I hung up that phone, I was just in awe. I still remember that night. You know, I just fell to my knees, and I began thanking God, because I was literally at a breaking point where I just was about to not necessarily give up, but my eyes started to shift, you know, elsewhere, and that happened. So I went on to work for that representative for a couple years. Again, I worked extremely hard. I learned a lot from him. It was an amazing experience working, you know, at that level in the House of Representatives. And that was my first opportunity, you know, and the number of relationships and all of those other things that are extremely important that happened there, you know, followed me, and they took me and brought me to where I am even today. So, yeah.
I think that speaks a lot about your work ethic and work development. As far as your grit and the grind, and your willingness not to give up. I think that speaks a lot for itself. As we wrap this interview up, my last question would be, uh, what do you tell the teenager that was once you? What do you tell the 16-year-old Jerrick? If you could go back in time, what would you tell him?
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to build relationships. Don't be afraid to befriend people who you may not share the same beliefs with.
Right.
There's this idea that we grew up, saying, oh, it was a bad thing to be friendly. We'd be like, oh, you so friendly. It was
Right.
looked at as it was a bad thing, and psychologically, we grow up believing that we shouldn't be friendly because it showed weakness, and it's the complete opposite in reality. Relationships is a sign of strength. Building relationships with people will take you beyond the stars. Those relationships that I built in college, which is one of the reasons that I praise HBCUs so much, and I encourage every Black and brown boy and girl to attend one, is because it's a unique experience that no other institution can offer you. There's nothing as powerful as being in a room with a bunch of people that look like you, and you all are looking at one common goal. Those same people that you come into college with, you're in the classroom with your freshman year, and your sophomore year of college, who don't know what they're doing with their life yet. At the time, you're partying, you're living wild, and you're growing bonds with one another. But that person, that woman to the right to you is going to be a doctor one day, and she may be your primary physician. And that guy to the left of you, he may be your dentist one day, and then that guy over there in the front, that just may be your accountant one day.
Right.
And it blows it blows my mind when I think about it, because I remember being told similar stories by my mentors of what it would be like, but until you can actually experience it, it's a beautiful feeling. But you would never experience, because I know guys that went off to college, that went to college with that mentality of not being friendly and not portraying yourself to be so associative. Like, they just had this chip on their shoulder. And today I have these conversations with them, and they'll tell me all the time, yo, I remember, like, I remember when you telling me this, like, yo, like, it ain't make sense now. Then it makes sense now. We're pushing 30, and it now makes sense.
You almost there. Don't try that.
It makes so much sense now, because I literally everything, and I received so many calls from guys and girls that I grew up with, not grew up with, I apologize, but that I went to school with, that has had to call me for various things that's taking place with the county or with the city or with the state, or just whatever it is, that I was the guy for. And I had to provide information, or I had to provide a service for them, or I had to get them, and when it came to me and my finances, one of the guys that I went to school with, he turned to be an accountant. One of my closest friends is a CPA now. Now he's my accountant, so it's like, but we didn't know these things at the time. But those relationships and those friendships that were cultivated in school are going to be pivotal. So even at the level that kids are now, don't be afraid to befriend people, because you never know when you're going to need them and when they may need you. That may be your next business partner.
Right.
And you just never know. So if I was to go back and to tell me anything, it would be that. It would be to don't be afraid to befriend people, and don't be afraid to accept the realities of other people's beliefs. Because growing up, you know, we grow to believe one thing, but there's Jane and Joe, you know, that grew up in this community and that community, and their belief system is completely different, but that doesn't make theirs wrong, and it doesn't make yours right. You know, I believe everyone's beliefs should be respected. I believe that everyone has a different, unique story that they can tell from the past that they took, and we can all learn and grow from them. So don't be afraid and willing to understand those, you know, because your way of believing is not the only way. Trust me. And if you don't learn anything in school or learn anything else, you're going to learn that in school, because you're going to see so many different walks of life. And when you're studying science versus theory, it messes with you. It messes with you. So, so because yeah. And I'll just leave that there. But, yeah, just you have to just open your mind up to the windows of life, into everything that life is able to bring you, and be open to it. Yeah, for sure.
All righty. Well, I want to thank you for your time. Congratulations on, you know, everything that you've overcome. I appreciate you doing this interview. I'm pretty sure I'll see you sometime soon at the next family gathering. You know what? Don't start. Don't start. But I really do appreciate you, and congratulations with everything, you know, you have going on. And I hope you and your family are being safe throughout this pandemic.
For sure, and congratulations to you, man. It's amazing what you're doing. So many kids look up to you. Like I said, mentorship is pivotal, man, and you never know whose lives you changing, you know, and they'll always remember it. Trust me.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You have a good one, Jerrick. Peace out.
Later.